All right, let's get started. Hello, everyone. My name is Joe, and thanks so much for joining us for this next installment of the T-Mobile for Business Solution Series, where we update organizations like yours on the evolving landscape of business connectivity and how you can leverage new developments to your advantage. Now, at the end of our time here together, I'll share a link to an online resource that contains lots of valuable connectivity information covering several topics across multiple verticals you can start implementing right away. But today, we're going to explore the continuing transformation of manufacturing's connectivity landscape. As manufacturing continues to evolve, its connectivity environment needs to evolve with it, requiring more and more speed and agility to handle near real-time data processing, like AI, edge computing, analytics platforms, and other solutions that far surpass the capabilities of Wi-Fi. Without this increased connectivity, manufacturers will no longer be able to innovate, which means they lose their competitive edge. And ultimately, they just lose. So the question is, how can T-Mobile and Digi help? Well, if you think of connectivity like a river, T-Mobile's industry-leading 5G network is the current, fast and powerful, moving data quickly, reliably, and securely wherever it needs to go. But to navigate this mighty 5G current, you need strong industrial-grade equipment that can withstand rough waters and guide and monitor data from safe harbor to safe harbor quickly, accurately, intelligently, and safely. And that's where our special guest and new T-Mobile strategic partner, Digi, comes into play. Digi is a pioneer in industrial-grade connectivity solutions that delivers seamless remote monitoring and data management. Combine that with T-Mobile's industry-leading 5G network solutions, innovation not only survives, it thrives. To explore this more deeply, we've invited two connectivity experts who will help us navigate this. Now, the first of our two guests is Nate Pleasant, Product Manager for Enterprise Software at Digi. Now, Nate has played many roles in the industry, starting out as a hardware engineer. So he brings a wealth of knowledge to the table. And when he isn't assisting customers integrate their devices into their business processes, he's an avid Dungeons and Dragons player. So he has no problem imagining a new world that includes powerful ways to conquer your connectivity challenges. And you won't even have to roll for them. All right, our other guest speaker is Andrew Polson. He's Senior Manager at T-Mobile for Business and Advanced Network Solutions. And when Andrew isn't driving strategic revenue through advanced network solutions and digital transformation initiatives, he's a volunteer firefighter. It's awesome. It means no matter what metaphorical fires the world of manufacturing connectivity throws at him, Andrew is the guy you want in your corner. But before we jump in with them, we're going to take care of a little housekeeping here. First, directly below the video screen, you can submit questions, and we encourage that. Feel free to submit questions anytime during the webinar, and you will receive a personalized response to each of your questions within 1 or 2 business days. Also, below the screen, you'll find a section called Related Content that contains links to all sorts of additional information about this topic. And last, during the webinar, some polling questions will appear on your screen. Just select your choices, and together we'll see the up to the second results. And remember, your answers will not be seen by any other webinar participants. In fact, let's go ahead and try one out, all right? Here's your question. How would you best describe the primary connectivity environment in your manufacturing operations? Please select one of these and then send. Would you say it's fully wired? Example, Ethernet-based systems? Partially wired with some wireless solutions like Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, fully wireless with Wi-Fi, 5G, IoT devices, legacy systems with minimal connectivity upgrades. That's your last choice. So please just pick one of these. Choose the one that most closely reflects your primary network environment and then hit send. All right, well, let's see how you all responded here. Well, it looks like your answers are wide-ranging, and that makes sense since you each have your own specific challenges. So let's go ahead and kick things off by starting with Nate, all right? Now, Nate, how are you seeing manufacturers evolving today?
That's a great introduction. Thank you so much. So yeah, we're seeing an evolve today, but just to step back a bit in time, this has been an evolution that's happened over decades, and Digi's been providing that innovative solution every step of the way. We started as a company back in the 1980s, and that was in the Industry 1.0 phase, we'll say, of this journey. And that was had a lot of different challenges that we're looking to resolve at that time. It was mainly about local serial communication. So that's where Digi's foundation started, was with that industrial manufacturing and communication, and doing that over serial-based devices. And as we evolved over the years, that grew to take on more different protocols as each vendor for industrial manufacturing equipment would evolve in their own pace and time, and that would introduce some protocols like a Goose protocol or DNP or OPC-UA, and each of these had their own distinct advantages that they would solve for a particular piece of equipment, a particular use case, or a particular type of site manufacturing. And with each of those evolutions of communication, Digi adapted its serial communication and capabilities to support that. So it became a very ubiquitous name amongst the different types of serial-based communication devices out there, as Digi being the easy-to-use solution with all those different use cases. And again, coming more into the modern times, in the past couple of decades, or 2000s, we'll say, was with the Industry 3.0, and that thing's when things became more automation at scale, which meant really connecting equipment to a network so you can really access it. As those manufacturing facilities became more widespread and more distributed across the globe, think oil and gas locations or just remote manufacturing facilities, you needed to have a IT team that could manage all of that in a central way, or just even a remote way, whether it's from some private network or a cell-based location. So that really meant getting the devices online. And that's where Digi and T-Mobile solved that by making cellular connectivity seamless, whether that's on a private network or public network. So where we are now is leveraging that connectivity in the best of the in-class world that it can be. So that's what Industry 4.0 world looks like. So it's leveraging that automation and connectivity and even AI tools today to optimize the entire manufacturing process. And that's the promise of Industry 4.0. You'll see on this slide, there's lots of buzzwords and initiatives, but at the end of the day, the value is your industrial manufacturing is about connecting everything everywhere to digitally transform your world. And that's what Digi and T-Mobile have been doing for years, and where we continue to innovate and help you along the way with that. I wanted to pause here. Andrew, I wanted you to give a moment to talk about that connecting everything everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Nate. And that's a great point. In order to realize all of the benefits of Industry 4.0, you have to have the right connectivity platforms in place to handle it all. The amount of data traversing the network grows exponentially with Industry 4.0. And many of the current networking platforms in place today just aren't scaled to handle it all. And that's what we're here to talk about today.
Great. Yeah, so we're talking about Industry 4.0. Just keep in mind that there is never a stopping point for technology. There's always innovations that happen. And Industry 5.0 will be in its next phase. And it's really focusing on what advantages it can make to make that process easier for both the manufacturing facility itself, but the people who work there, more importantly, and the companies that run them. So making that a more advanced technology solution. So it's adopting those new innovations and within both the network and the equipment. So you'll see ubiquitous coverage increases and technology advancements help resolve this Industry 5.0 advancement. So things like 5G connectivity and leveraging the 5G advancements that T-Mobile offers along with Digi connectivity to the network, as well as satellite communication and use of cellular to make it more reliable, faster, and sustainable overall network. And just as Digi and T-Mobile have been key innovators and solution providers for industrial solutions for decades, we continue to lead this charge here and making sure that you are leveraging your network to the best ability that you can there. So to speak on some 5G innovations in particular, we're going to drill down into this a bit, but there's some distinct advantages here that T-Mobile has available for industrial manufacturing solutions. Andrew, can you maybe break down these numbers a bit?
Yeah, absolutely, Nate. So a recent study by Omdia showed the top 5 benefits for implementing 5G for manufacturing. First of all is, improved worker experiences. When workers don't have to worry about being connected while they're on the factory floor or even in a distribution center or logistics center, they just want whatever device they're using. They want whatever solution they're using to just work. Anytime they have to think about connectivity, that's usually a result in downtime at the end of the day. And so when you've got better coverage and you've got a much more ubiquitous coverage throughout the entire factory floor, that really allows for industries to be able to do a lot more and connect a lot more things. Other benefits include improved worker safety. So when you've got a platform that allows for things to stay connected all the time, think of your autonomous guided vehicles that might be roaming the floor and being able to have real-time reactions because they're on a very fast and low latency, fast network with very low latency. That allows them to be able to react in time and then resume immediately when things are safe again. And of course, enhanced security out of sight with vision systems and video technologies and being able to ensure only the right people are in the right places at the right time. At the end of the day, it all kind of comes down to really increased process automation. When you start looking at, what are really the most effective tasks for humans to do versus machines to do, and being able to enable the right types of technologies based on the different processes that may be in place or that are going to be in place as you move into a fully Industry 4.0 environment. And that's all possible and a lot more with 5G.
Right, absolutely. Well, fantastic, guys. Great way to set the table for us. Yeah, I think we're all ready to rock and roll. You highlighted the fact that, manufacturers are facing challenges like, siloed systems and limited interoperability, variable network reliability. So that leads me to ask everyone listening another question here. What steps is your organization taking or has already taken to upscale connectivity and fully leverage the advantages of Industry 4.0? Now, remember, no other participant can see your response there. You're okay. So select all that apply to you and then hit that send button, all right? Have you implemented advanced robotics and AI systems, increased training and upskilled your workforce, enhanced your sustainability practices, upgraded your digital infrastructure, including IoT and 5G connectivity, or not yet taken significant steps toward Industry 4.0 readiness? Go ahead and select any of these steps your organization has taken or going to take, and then go ahead and send, all right? Okay, well, let's take a look and see how you responded this time. Well, once again, I see a wide range of responses coming in. But you know what the good news is? All of these enhancements are achievable these days, right? So, Andrew, why don't you go ahead and continue here? Can you take us through some use cases that illustrate how manufacturers are evolving their connectivity to remain competitive and prepare for the future?
Absolutely. There are literally hundreds of use cases where 5G really shines. If you look at the standard connectivity model today, which is Wi-Fi in most cases, there are a lot of challenges with Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is a great technology, don't get me wrong. I'm using it today, sitting here on my laptop that is not capable of a 5G connection embedded, inherently in it. So 5G is still an awesome technology. But the challenge becomes when things are mobile or moving around, or you're starting to connect hundreds or thousands of devices into the network. When you start looking at sensors and asset tags, things like, small label asset tags, all of the connected mobile workers, and being able to really make sure that everyone's got the strength, the bandwidth, the coverage, and it just stays connected all the time. Another challenge becomes oftentimes in a Wi-Fi world, devices will make that decision on when they connect and when they hand off. And sometimes there's a little bit of a lag there, some introduction of latency and jitter, which especially with things that are real time, like autonomous guided robotics and vehicles and things like that, or just very latency sensitive applications really don't seem to do very well in that world. That's where 5G really shines. One of the most common use cases for 5G, just connected mobile worker. Those that are out there with their smartphones or tablets or scanning devices or whatever that may be, making sure that they're just connected all the time. And so they shouldn't have to worry about, if I stand here, I'm connected, but if I stand there, I'm not connected. I just want to be connected everywhere. And that's one of the things that 5G and cellular really does well, creates a very pervasive environment for anything and everything to connect and stay connected the entire time. Then you start bringing in some of the more advanced use cases like robotics and AR, VR solutions and video enhancements and computer vision. Those things really shine well when they've got a high amount of bandwidth and an extremely low latency. And so creating that type of environment, and 5G allows you to do that, really enables that to happen. And again, on the number of devices connected, as more and more devices are connected, as more and more data is generated, oftentimes that's really straining today's Wi-Fi networks. And 5G can be that platform, whether it's an alternate platform in running both of them, which many do today, or at some point in time, moving to much more of a 5G-centric environment. Imagine just being able to worry about one network connectivity model, whether that's device is on your factory floor or outside across the globe, always being able to be connected to that device. And that's something 5G is able to do. And so I mention that because when you look at the entire ecosystem of manufacturing, whether that's raw materials coming in, whether that's the production lines, or whether that's the finished goods and going out, within the factory floor, absolutely it's important to have a very strong connectivity. But of course, sometimes those things that are produced, or again, whether it's through asset tags or other means, they still need to be connected outside, maybe moving from one finished area to another finished area within your campus environment or factory environment. And then of course, on the go as well. Perfect example of that would be in the auto industry, being able to produce a vehicle, but be able to do over-the-air updates for that vehicle's software or firmware. And so being able to do that in a way where I don't have to worry about how that vehicle's connected. It's just always connected because 5G is virtually everywhere. And then lastly, being able to secure all of that data, whether it's T-Mobile's T-SIM Secure or through private APNs or wherever that might be, being able to ensure that your data is fully protected and that it's not touching the public internet if it doesn't need to or you don't want it to, but being able to have private routing protocols in place in order to ensure your data gets to where it needs to be in a very secure fashion. Or if it does need to go to a public site, it's going through a secure web gateway to ensure that all of that data is protected. And I mentioned on the factory floor, because that's really one of the biggest challenges from an Industry 4.0 takes place. We've got a very strong public mobile network, and we've been applauded by all of the industry analysts, whether it's Ookla or OpenSignal or so many others that say that we've got the fastest, we've got the most available, we've got the lowest latency, best performing 5G network. And we're very proud of that. And so we've worked very hard to get here. But oftentimes in some of these more industrial environments, the signal may not be as strong as you need it to be indoors. And that's where we come in and build purpose-built coverage in order to give you exactly what you need and the coverage that you need indoors as well as outdoors. These can be both indoor and outdoor solutions that might be at a factory plant that's sort of in the middle of nowhere, but you still want to take advantage of cellular and 5G in order to connect anything and everything. And so we can build that for you. And then in the use cases where you need more of a private cellular connectivity, we can hang private cores off of that in order to create a private SIM card, an air-gapped environment. And that's usually the case where you've got local on-prem processing and applications, and you don't want that data to have to leave and do a hairpin round trip outside to come back in when that processing happens on premise. And so we can do that with a private SIM card and a private core as well. So most people think if I'm doing cellular in industrial environments, it has to be just private only. Well, you're building sort of a single purpose network when you do that. You're not really taking advantage of all that cellular has to offer. And that's really one of the advantages of working with T-Mobile is we build those in more of a hybrid mobile network environment. So you can leverage both public SIM cards as well as private SIM cards. And so oftentimes the question comes, what about capacity constraints, within that environment? How do you handle that? Well, T-Mobile has built our 5G network from the ground up as a 5G standalone stack network. So in other words, everything within that stack is 5G. Unlike a lot of other operators, here in the US and around the globe, they're getting there into that 5G standalone, but they have what's called a non-standalone, which means I really have a 4G core and I'm stacking some 5G components on top of it, but at the end of the day, it's still a 4G core. Well, when you've got a fully 5G stacked network, you can do things like some of the advanced network features like network slicing. And network slicing is that ability for us to be able to carve out a portion of the network specific to a use case. So let's take, for example, that autonomous guided vehicle, that ability to ensure that because I've got those in place, but I've got a bunch of smartphones and tablets and cameras and sensors and smart labels and you name it, they're all hogging the network as well. I have to ensure that these autonomous guided vehicles from a worker safety perspective and from a productivity perspective are always working and always aware of their environment around them. And so being able to create a network slice, I can put those AGVs or those robotics on that slice to ensure that they always have a consistent lane on the highway, that 5G highway, to enable them to just be on no matter how crowded the rest of that network gets inside or on that campus environment. And that ensures that those devices are always running in an optimal fashion. And so that's something that's unique to 5G and something that's a little bit unique to T-Mobile at the moment because we're the only ones with a true 5G standalone network that allows us to do things like that. And so when you start taking a look at, go ahead.
I was going to ask if I could add on to that. One of the other main benefits with 5G slicing is you can do multi-slicing. So in a network that might have multiple types of data or traffic going through it, which is typical in a manufacturing environment, there's lots of equipment that's connected to the 5G network, is you can set up multi-slicing to prioritize and send out traffic, like you're saying, through specific dedicated lanes of the 5G network. But with 5G multi-slicing, you can have multiples of those together, each with their own unique set of constraints for optimizing latency or optimizing throughput and enhancing the throughput there, or just massive IoT connections with the dedicated lane out. That's really a true, unique, and distinguishing advantage that T-Mobile offers with their 5G solution.
Yes, absolutely. And well put, Nate. I appreciate that. And yeah, it's something that's still being developed. It's a little bit newer in the industry, but something we're actually started leveraging already within our network for our customers. And so, when you look at the entire factory floor, there's a lot of different use cases and a lot of different things that can be connected simultaneously and be able to run at a very optimal and efficient way. Whether it's robotics, whether it's pallet or asset tracking, could be security. And of course, again, that number one use case is just that connected mobile worker on a factory floor or in a distribution center, being able to have that handheld device and ensuring that no matter where they are in that environment. And oftentimes these are very difficult environments for wireless technologies because there's a lot of steel, there's a lot of concrete, there's a lot of machines and other things that kind of impede your standard wireless environments. And so being able to ensure that you've got a very pervasive coverage allows you to really make sure everything is connected in the most optimum way. And then when you look at, well, what about some of the devices that may not be 5G enabled today? Well, we've got, as we build out these environments for our customers, our manufacturing and distribution center customers, we're building out a system that essentially is its own cell site within your environment, whether, again, on a campus or on a manufacturing floor. And so it's not dependent on the outside cell sites to feed it. So it's not a repeater. It's its own, whether it's a distributed antenna system or different, fashions of that, to enable you to have your own coverage in that environment. And that allows us to do a lot of these other cool features and things with it as well. But sometimes where you don't have devices that are 5G enabled today, that's another place that Digi really comes in and helps out in order to be able to enable those legacy devices with 5G. Nate, you want to talk a little more about that?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, that Digi device is really your single connection point for the different types of communication protocols that might happen with those different pieces of equipment that don't have their own cellular connectivity or cell modem inside of them. So you can leverage things such as a serial communication, which I mentioned Digi's been a leader in for decades, as well as Ethernet-based connection, Wi-Fi connectivity, or even simple analog and digital I/O ports. So if it's just even a simple relay that you need to have remote access to, or just even automated control over, that all becomes a way that the cellular router and the iX40 in this diagram here can provide that ease of use connectivity and leverage that on the best-in-class network that T-Mobile offers with their 5G network, whether that's the public network that we've talked about or these private networks or a hybrid of the two. And not to mention if you have some sort of distributed manufacturing facility where there are multiple sites all needing to communicate with each other, maybe they're trying to automate and handle that manufacturing process for the multi-site setup. Digi devices have incorporated the best and leading VPN technologies into the device. So not only can you leverage the reliable and secure connectivity of T-Mobile's network itself, but utilize the modern VPN technologies on top of that to further kind of distribute and connect your multiple sites together. So to talk a bit about, so when we maybe go back into the promise that Industry 4.0 had, those different capabilities, in addition to the 5G advancements and benefits we've talked about before, there's also several things to consider when you're choosing your Industry 4.0 solution. And Digi has some key advantages in our products and solutions that we offer along with T-Mobile. And to talk about the first part of it, you got to get it right at the source. You have to make sure you're getting a secure solution from start to finish. And that includes a securely manufactured device that is produced and manufactured from a vetted and validated manufacturing facility. So the things like TAA compliance especially for US-based manufacturing facilities is a big important thing, because if you are manufacturing things for, say, government contracts or any other sort of military facilities, the equipment you install there has to be compliant and validated from the country of origin that it comes from. So having that TA compliance stamp is a really value add for the Digi products and solutions to make sure you're getting the right security at the source. And there's also security in software as well. So making sure that your equipment is communicating with vetted and validated secure encryption algorithms and authentication tools. Make sure that the communication is secure from both the start of the packet that's coming out of your network through the T-Mobile network to your data center or other equipment that it's talking to. So different certifications like FIPS 140-2 become a stamp there and a gold standard that not just Digi routers adhere to, but is something that is standard amongst U.S. policy. So that's the beginning of it, but there's also other things to consider when you're making sure you're getting a solution that delivers on the promise of Industry 4.0. And that's also with making sure that your equipment is not just a black box that you install and hope it does what you think it should be doing, but it is tailor fit to the solution that is needed for your industrial manufacturing facility. So leveraging Digi containers, you can have that integration to make sure that any sort of automated applications or custom applications that your company has developed, or even if you want to leverage best-in-class and even industry standard tools in the industrial facility, so things like inductive automations, Ignition Edge, or encrypted portless VPN communication with AtSigns technology, and then even the EACM tool from AutoSol. A lot of these different industrial communication tools and technologies that have been out there now become something that you can run easily and efficiently on Digi devices without having to have another piece of equipment that's hard to maintain or difficult to manage within your infrastructure. And then lastly, with the connectivity, not only can we leverage the reliability that T-Mobile leads on with their 5G network, with either in the public network or the private network for that facility, but you can also bond the multiple connections together for either increased reliability or throughput for that mission critical data. So we've seen customers with use cases like this where they need to make sure that for, say, remote distributions like oil and gas facilities, they might need to combine multiple cell connections together, even from the same carrier. They might just be using, if we're talking LTE days, different bands, but with 5G, we mentioned before, different network slices to really get those prioritized lanes for the connectivity. And we can actually have a device like the Digi device that can bond multiple of them together into a seamless single internet connection. So you don't have to worry about anything about failover or any downtime between the two connections. It just seamlessly sends that traffic through the T-Mobile network on the multiple lanes that it has, and it gives you that data guaranteed assurance for your mission critical data. And all that are wrapped into device management as well. Again, these devices are growing, and as far as quantity at each site, thinking massive IoT equipment, there's, like Andrew said, there's hundreds and thousands of them that you have to manage. And not only have the solution solved with T-Mobile's network for connectivity with 5G, but also device management of the equipment to make sure that they stay up to date with security notifications, critical patches, or even just firmware updates. Digi is a leading vendor for that by providing a Digi remote management tool for making sure your equipment not only stays up to date, but you are notified and made sure that for quality assurance and audit purposes, that your equipment stays up to date and is compliant with all the basic security standards.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I'm blown away by all these exciting developments that are out there. I had no idea. Before we dig deeper into some more real-world case studies, quick reminder, everyone out there, if you do have a question for Andrew or Nate, make sure to submit those. We will make sure you get an individualized answer within the next day or so. And now I do want to ask you one last poll question. Now, this could be a little tough. Here it is. How confident are you that your organization's connectivity solutions are on the right track and will be ready to leverage the benefits offered by Industry 4.0? Now, remember, no other webinar participant could see your response, so you can be completely honest here, all right? So please select one of these and then send. Would you say you are very confident, confident, somewhat confident, or not very confident? Go ahead and select your confidence level here and then send. All right, let's take a look and see what the confidence is out there. Well, just as I suspected, there's not a whole lot of confidence out there, but then that's why you're here, right? So that brings us to our final and perhaps most important topic, how T-Mobile and Digi are working together to guide manufacturing connectivity into the future. Andrew, why don't you go ahead and lead us off?
Absolutely, Joe. So, as we talked about before, being able to use 5G in order to be able to connect things on that factory floor as part of Industry 4.0, that really gives industries and manufacturers the opportunities to do some things they may have never done before and create greater operational efficiencies, whether that's through solutions like sensors for real-time quality control, automation for autonomous guided and things that move about without human intervention, or even just smart factory floors and being able to do things like AR/VR solutions. 5G really shines and enables those things to happen. One example of that is around computer vision and being able to do quality control. The human eye is absolutely fascinating. It really can detect and see so many different things, but it's amazing how much quicker and faster and more accurate some of these computer vision solutions are, but they need the right network in order to be able to do that. And when they're AI driven and allow for, as things start becoming just slightly off in the manufacturing process, that information is set in real time to the controls and applications that are making adjustments in real time. So you don't have to necessarily shut down a factory line in order to make those adjustments and then start it back up again, but those things can happen in real time. But you can only do that if you've got the right network in place that enables all of those robotics and all of that computer vision and all of those solutions in order to be able to communicate with each other and share that data and process that data in real time. Another great area to do that, we talked a little bit already about robotics. Robotics, again, when the device is making the decision of where it's going to hand off from one wireless source to another in a again, in a Wi-Fi world, oftentimes that can be very detrimental to autonomous vehicles and autonomous robots in order to really stay connected the entire time. Because when they make that handoff and you introduce that latency and jitter, or it just hits that one little dead spot, those things stop moving. And when that happens, production stops. And when that happens, you're losing revenue and you're losing a lot of efficiencies. And so being able to have that ubiquitous coverage, especially when things have to move across pretty far ranges, some of your facilities are quite large, several 100,000 or million or more square feet, that becomes a little bit more difficult to cover. And when you do it with cellular, you're also doing it with less access points or radios or antennas, less cabling, less infrastructure, but better coverage and more ubiquitous coverage to be able to support solutions like this. Nate, I know you've got an example you wanted to share as it relates to autonomous guided robots.
Yeah, a great example, just to follow on what you said, was helping out with Digi was helping out with a distribution center in Florida, where that distribution facility was responsible for providing the inventory for a large distribution vendor and market store with hundreds of locations throughout the area. And this one distribution center, which had all this inventory and equipment, was several football fields long. I mean, it being there, you never thought it would end. the way that the once you're inside there, just rows and rows of equipment and packaging. But they had multiple floors of this with robots, AMRs within each lane of that interior of the facility. And it was all connected Wi-Fi originally when the facility was designed. As a result, they had a lot of infrastructure headaches, like you mentioned, Andrew. Like, they had to have so many access points throughout the building installed. And there was a lot of headaches they ran through even after the equipment was installed, vetted. When things actually production turned on, there was routine issues where the AMR would get into like these dead zones like you talked about, or latency would shut down, and all of a sudden that AMR, whose job is to quickly get the equipment from the inventory, bring it out and have it packaged up for shipping, would stop. And when one of those stops, you had to shut down the whole line so someone could crawl up into where all the AMR robots are and fix the connectivity, move it back to a location where it could get the Wi-Fi fixture. And over the past year, they switched out to a entirely based private cellular network environment with Digi routers. And thanks to that, there's less infrastructure they had to deal with, with access points and managing those. So, and the better, more continuous and quality coverage that they got out of that really brought down their production issues and factory downline by several factors there, and just to the end of the day gave them better overall revenue without any service disruptions. So it's a real value add for companies who have these large facilities.
Absolutely. I've been in several manufacturing facilities and distribution centers myself, and yes, they are quite large. And most of the time, once you start really talking to the folks that are in charge of those, the productivity of those facilities, they'll eventually kind of admit, yeah, there are some connectivity challenges. These again are very large industrial environments, either high shelves or walls. Or another manufacturer I spoke with, it was running a AMR project and absolutely was like, we have to do this cellular first because we know these things are going from one room to another, but it's a very small space that they have to fit through in order to get there. That Wi-Fi signal is not going to bend and come underneath. And these walls were pretty thick, concrete and steel walls. So that handoff had to be seamless. And so they wanted to ensure that in using cellular. And not just cellular, but being able to use the right type of cellular. Oftentimes, you mentioned private cellular. Most private cellular here in the U.S. Has been deployed using CBRS technology or spectrum, and there are challenges, to that. In that there's just not a lot of that spectrum available for businesses to use, and it's also shared, which means if I'm doing it in my location, my neighbor wants to do it, I've got to share that spectrum with them. We do it a little differently here at T-Mobile. When we build these environments out, private and hybrid environments, we use our licensed spectrum, which we have a tremendous amount of. And that allows us to be able to do things like run the robotics, and your computer vision, and all your connected mobile workers, and all your sensors, and all your smart labels, and all your everything. We've got plenty of spectrum to be able to work with these solutions that ensure, and again, with things like network slicing and other technologies and advancements in cellular technology, allows for everything to run optimally all the time. One last one here we'll discuss is around augmented reality and wearable technology, and that ability to, when something does break or stop, how do you ensure you've got the right technician in order to be able to repair that and bring that robotic or machine or whatever that might be back online quickly and efficiently. Oftentimes, not every technician or repair person has everything they need with them when they show up to that particular location. And so, or they may not be the most expert on that particular machine, but being able to have wearable technology, they can see what it's supposed to look like versus what it does look like and where those differences are and how to make that adjustment, as well as being able to access things like remote manuals, electronic manuals, and know how to get to the right information, not have to do the swivel chair back and forth between looking at a manual and looking at what they're actually doing. And so these type of technologies are really starting to take off as it relates to manufacturing and distribution. And Nate, I think you've got another example as well to talk about.
Yeah, just to note, a use case we had that really leverages some of the 5G innovations that T-Mobile is doing is Digi. We worked with a partner and customer where they use these wearable technologies and providing them to the different manufacturing facilities that they service. And when they were utilized, they found that they had to quickly reserve some sort of network bandwidth and space for that, because once some of this equipment comes on, it consumes a lot of data to send up this high quality video imaging and data back and forth to the systems that they need to communicate with. So we were able to leverage T-Mobile's Quality on Demand, or QOD service, to make this dynamic API allocation within T-Mobile's network infrastructure to say, hey, we need this network bandwidth available, and T-Mobile's then able to provide that just for this particular application. So then that bandwidth was dynamically allocated for just this data usage, which helps both with the customer data plans, so making sure they're using the data and referencing that only when they need to, and then using the regular network connection for all other use cases. So really, thanks to the quality and improvements that T-Mobile's done with their 5G network, we were able to solve a lot of challenges that these augmented wearable technologies have had.
Yeah, indeed. I got to tell you, it's really good to see how manufacturers are breathing a little easier after working with partners like T-Mobile and Digi, and that helps them to keep their connectivity environment moving forward. That leads me to ask if anyone watching or listening is interested in learning more about the process you both use to help them. What is the next, or perhaps next several steps that they should take? Andrew.
Absolutely, Joe. So, one of the things that we do is work with all of our customers to be able to understand, where they are in this transformational journey, and, whether they're just starting, whether, they're in the middle of it, or whether they're really kind of humming along, and what else can be done in order to make it even more operationally efficient. And so we're happy to come in and do whiteboard sessions to figure out, where you're at in that journey. What can cellular and 5G and partners like Digi do in order to be able to help you through that transformational process? How do you take that next step? What should that look like? Who are some of the partners to work with in order to enable all of that? And so we're happy to come out and do that. And matter of fact, we do it for free. Most people charge, heavy consulting dollars. At T-Mobile here, we don't. So we're just excited to be able to work with you and enable that entire digital transformation.
In addition, Digi also provides a professional services team that's available to help kind of anywhere along your Industry 4.0 journey, whether that's just getting some guidance on best practices and setup, to provisioning and staging equipment before it's sent out to the site, or even integrating custom applications into your solution. We're really there to help you anywhere along this journey.
Yeah, very customizable. That's the thing that really stands out, both for T-Mobile and for Digi, right?
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, I hate to see that we're coming to a close here, but thank you guys for all that great information. Quick reminder for everyone out there, answer to all the questions that you submitted, that will be sent to you directly within the next day or so. And you will be receiving a general follow-up email that contains links in case you think of more questions after we're done here. That follow-up email also will contain links to additional information about this and many other topics, including information about live in-person events where you can meet with the T-Mobile and Digi teams face-to-face and continue this conversation. Oh, and don't forget, right now you can access more information in that related content section just below this window. Thank you all again to Andrew and Nate, and thank you, all of you, for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you again at one of our next webinars. So long, everyone.